What began as a joyful celebration, a child's birthday party in Stockton, California, quickly spiraled into a nightmare that no one could have anticipated. The restaurant was filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the excited chatter of children gathered around a table, decorated with colorful balloons and streamers. Families had come together to mark a special occasion, never imagining the horror that would soon unfold. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire shattered the festive atmosphere. In a matter of moments, chaos erupted as terrified guests scrambled for cover. 4 people lost their lives in the attack, their dreams and futures cut short in an instant. 10 others were left seriously injured, some fighting for their lives as the restaurant transformed from a place of joy into a scene of unimaginable tragedy. The air was filled with sirens and cries for help, as families clung to each other in shock and disbelief. The attack took place late Tuesday evening at a popular family restaurant, a spot known for hosting celebrations and bringing the community together. Now, it stands as a grim reminder of the violence that shattered so many lives, leaving the entire city in a state of shock and mourning. According to authorities, a lone gunman entered the restaurant and opened fire on the party area. His identity and motive remain unknown, deepening the sense of fear and confusion among residents. Investigators are working tirelessly to piece together what led to this senseless act. Emergency services responded within minutes, rushing to the scene to provide aid and transport the wounded to nearby hospitals. Despite their swift actions, the damage had already been done, leaving families and first responders grappling with the aftermath. In the days that followed, Stockton has been mourning deeply. Vigils and memorials have sprung up outside the restaurant, with residents leaving flowers, candles, and heartfelt messages for the victims. The community has come together, embracing one another in shared grief and disbelief, struggling to comprehend how such violence could strike so close to home. City leaders have addressed the public, urging unity and compassion in the face of tragedy. Support groups and counseling services have been made available as neighbors gather for unity, marches, and meetings to support the victims and their families. The city's resilience is being tested, but there is a growing determination to stand together and heal. As the investigation continues, Stockton faces the painful task of healing and seeking justice. Detectives are working around the clock, collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses, while the community holds on to hope that answers and accountability will come. In the face of heartbreak, Stockton is determined not to let this tragedy define them, but to emerge stronger, united, and committed to supporting one another. Pizza Palace, a beloved neighborhood spot, is usually alive with the sounds of laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the joyful shouts of children celebrating milestones. On most nights, the air is filled with the aroma of fresh pizza and the warmth of families gathered together, making memories under the glow of colorful lights. But on this particular evening, the festive atmosphere was shattered. What began as a 6-year-old's birthday party, complete with balloons, streamers, and the promise of cake, suddenly descended into chaos and fear. Witnesses recall the moment when joy turned to terror. In an instant, a gunman armed with a semi-automatic rifle stormed the private party room. The sound of laughter was replaced by screams and the deafening noise of gunfire as families dove for cover, desperately trying to shield their loved ones. Patrons and staff scrambled in every direction, overturning tables and crawling on the floor, searching for safety. The ordeal lasted only a few minutes, but in that short time, lives were changed forever. The once happy room was left in ruins, echoing with the cries of the injured and the stunned silence of those in shock. Police responded within minutes, their vehicles' lights flashing urgently in the night. When they entered the scene, they found victims both inside and outside the restaurant, evidence of the chaos that had spilled beyond the party room. The suspect, however, had already vanished into the darkness. Paramedics rushed in, working frantically to save lives. They performed CPR and tended to wounds, but despite their efforts, 4 people were pronounced dead at the scene. 10 others, some critically injured, were quickly loaded onto stretchers and rushed to nearby hospitals, their families left anxiously awaiting news. As the night wore on, detectives began the painstaking process of collecting evidence. They marked bullet casings, photographed the scene, and interviewed shaken witnesses, determined to piece together the sequence of events that led to this tragedy. The motive behind the attack remains a mystery, adding to the community's sense of unease. Investigators are working around the clock, reviewing security footage, and following up on leads, hoping to uncover what drove the shooter to target a child's birthday celebration. As Stockton reels from the shock, the search for answers is as desperate as the hunt for the shooter. The community is left grappling with grief, fear, and a longing for justice, as police continue their relentless pursuit of the person responsible for turning a night of joy into a night of heartbreak. With the suspect still at large, Stockton is on high alert as police launch a citywide manhunt. The suspect, described as a masked male in dark clothing, remains unidentified. Roadblocks and helicopters mark the city's tense atmosphere, while residents are urged to report any tips. Police Chief Eric Jones appealed for community help, emphasizing that public vigilance is crucial. Schools have increased security, and many residents are staying indoors, anxiously awaiting news. Social media is flooded with concern and safety reminders as the city hopes for a swift resolution. Investigators are analyzing surveillance footage and exploring possible motives or connections. Stockton waits, united in fear and hope for justice. Grief has gripped Stockton as residents gather near Pizza Palace to mourn. Flowers, candles, and notes line the sidewalk, while strangers comfort each other in shared sorrow. Faith leaders have opened their doors for vigils and counseling, helping the community process the tragedy. First responders, deeply affected, are receiving support for the trauma they endured. Online, Stockton Strong trends as people nationwide offer condolences and donations for victims' families. The outpouring of compassion is a testament to the city's unity in the face of heartbreak. The pain is profound, but Stockton's spirit endures. The community stands together, determined not to let violence define them. Vice Mayor Jason Lee's words captured Stockton's heartbreak and resolve. He called the shooting a senseless act that has scarred the city, vowing support for the victims' families. The city is partnering with nonprofits to provide counseling and financial aid through a family assistance center. Lee urged unity, asking residents to support police efforts and each other. "We must stand together as one Stockton," he declared, emphasizing resilience over division. He promised the city would not be defined by violence, but by its strength and compassion. Lee's message was clear. Stockton will not be terrorized into fear. The city will pursue justice and healing, determined to prevent future tragedies. His leadership offers hope in a time of anguish. 4 lives were lost in the Stockton shooting, their names withheld as families grieve in private. The victims were celebrating a child's birthday, parents, children, friends, lives cut short in an instant. 10 others remain hospitalized, some in critical condition, as medical teams fight to save them. Survivors face a long road to recovery, both physically and emotionally. The tragedy's impact is felt in every empty seat and unanswered call. Memorials outside the restaurant honor those lost, reminding the city of the human cost. The community's focus remains on supporting the victims and seeking justice. Stockton mourns, determined to remember lives lived, not just lost. The Stockton tragedy has reignited a fierce and emotional debate over gun control, even in California, a state often cited as having some of the strictest firearm regulations in the nation. The shockwaves from the incident have rippled through communities, lawmakers, and advocacy groups, forcing a closer look at whether existing laws are truly effective in preventing such violence. Despite comprehensive measures like universal background checks, mandatory waiting periods, and bans on assault weapons, the recent shooting has exposed potential loopholes and ongoing challenges in enforcement. Critics argue that while the laws are robust on paper, gaps remain that can be exploited, allowing dangerous individuals to slip through the cracks. Investigators are now meticulously probing how the shooter managed to obtain the weapon, whether it was purchased legally through a licensed dealer, acquired via private sale, or trafficked illegally. Each possibility raises difficult questions about the effectiveness of current safeguards and the persistent problem of illegal firearm circulation. In response, gun control advocates are intensifying their calls for closing loopholes, implementing stronger enforcement, and introducing new reforms. They argue that tragedies like Stockton are preventable, and that lawmakers must act decisively to protect communities from further harm. On the other side, gun rights supporters contend that California's strict laws failed to prevent the tragedy, suggesting that more regulations may not be the answer. Instead, they urge policymakers to address root causes such as mental health, social instability, and community resources, emphasizing that responsible gun owners should not be penalized for the actions of a few. The incident has brought renewed attention to the ongoing struggle between ensuring public safety and upholding Second Amendment rights. The balance between individual freedoms and collective security remains a deeply divisive issue, with passionate arguments on both sides. As the story unfolds, both advocates and opponents of gun control are using Stockton as a rallying point, fueling heated discussions in the media, on social platforms, and in legislative chambers across the country. The tragedy has become a symbol in the broader national debate over how best to address gun violence. Ultimately, the Stockton tragedy underscores not only the complexity and urgency of America's gun violence crisis, but also the profound impact such events have on families, communities, and the nation's ongoing search for solutions. The path forward remains uncertain, but the need for meaningful dialogue and action has never been clearer. Stockton's tragedy echoes nationwide, reigniting the cycle of grief and debate over gun violence. Mass shootings have become disturbingly routine, leaving many Americans numb and frustrated. For victims' families, the pain is raw and personal, even as their loss becomes part of a national argument. Politicians renew calls for federal action or defend gun rights, but meaningful change remains elusive. The debate is polarized, with little compromise despite widespread support for measures like universal background checks. Stockton's story is another reminder of the divisions that stall progress. As the city mourns, the nation wonders if the cycle will ever break. The need for solutions grows more urgent with every tragedy. As of December 3rd, the Stockton shooting investigation is ongoing, with the suspect still at large. Police are working around the clock, updating the public while protecting the integrity of the manhunt. Residents are urged to rely on official sources and avoid spreading rumors. The coming days will be critical as authorities seek to identify and capture the shooter. The community awaits updates on the victims and hopes for stories of survival. Stockton's recovery will be long, but the search for justice and healing continues. The impact of this tragedy will last far beyond the headlines. The city, and the nation, remains focused on supporting the victims and preventing future violence.